I showed you the other day the headline in the Toronto Star where the Trudeau government was floating the idea of sending Canadian troops into Ukraine itself. I think it's the worst possible idea from a government with a lot of bad ideas. I mean, if we had a bad idea laboratory, the only thing I think that could engineer to be worse would be if Trudeau wanted to send Canadian troops into Gaza. He'd probably want them to defend Hamas. He'll probably suggest that pretty soon, considering the path he's on. But as I said the other day, I really don't know what Canada would do other than being a PR backdrop for Trudeau or Chrystia Freeland's next photo op in Kiev. I mean, Trudeau makes so many promises to Ukraine about sending weapons, but I'm really not certain if any of them have actually physically been sent over and used. Trudeau made a big show about sending over an air defense system, costs almost $500 million. Let me read the CBC story on that, though, so you know the reality must be a lot worse if this is what the CBC says. Ukraine's president says getting air defense systems onto the battlefield is the top priority in the new year, but the system Canada promised a year ago still hasn't been delivered, and it's not clear when it will be. By the way, Canada doesn't even have that air defense missile system. Basically, Trudeau promised to buy one, to be made, and then to be sent directly to Ukraine from the factory, I guess. But one of the companies that makes them says they don't even have a contract yet. Here's another promise from Trudeau, and the CBC reports this one credulously. Let me read this one to you. Canada donating hundreds of drones to help war effort in Ukraine. I'll read a little bit. The federal government is donating more than 800 drones to help the war effort in Ukraine, Defense Minister Bill Blair announced Monday. Now, you can probably guess the punchline here. Do you think that Canada even has 800 military drones to donate? No, we do not. I don't know if we have 8. Again, Trudeau is promising that he'll find a company to make them, sign a contract with that company, pay the company will do the contract, and they'll send the drones to Ukraine and be used. Do you see a pattern here? Do you think that's actually going to happen? You know, Trudeau promised to send 4 of our Leopard 2 battle tanks to Ukraine, right? Leopard 2 is the name of the tanks. They're made in Germany. I think that only a single one has been sent. Here's a picture of it. I love that caption of the photo. The first Canadian Leopard 2 main battle tank donated to Ukraine arrives by air transport in Poland. So it's a single tank, and I don't know if it's even made it into Ukraine from Poland, and that's it. Again, just photo ops. The Globe and Mail got the photo. They were really excited. I don't know if Canada has 4 working Leopard 2 battle tanks that are in suitable condition to send. I really don't. I'm not sure if they're up to standard. Other countries have been sending in Leopard 2 battle tanks, and they've had some limited success. Here's some images of Russians attacking the Leopard 2 tanks. So they're not a magic solution to stopping the Russians. Now, those tanks are from the 80s, so it's sort of 50-year-old, 40-year-old technology that actually makes them a lot younger than other Canadian military equipment. I honestly don't know if Canada's Leopard 2 tanks have up-to-date computer systems, battle communication systems, aiming systems. Do you think they do? Do you think the Canadian Armed Forces has updated those tanks made in the 1980s to be high-tech to work with other NATO allies in the 2020s? What's your theory about what appears to be just a single tank sent to Ukraine despite all the press conferences? What do you think's going on? Well, here's another CBC story, and I'm sorry for using such an unreliable source, but it's sort of like how I like to use Abacus polls to bring the news about how unpopular Justin Trudeau is, because Abacus was created by one of Trudeau's close political allies in the Liberal Party. So if they say things are bad for Trudeau, you can probably take it to the bank, as opposed to a conservative pollster saying the same thing. By the way, I can't name a conservative pollster off the top of my head, but I think you get the point. So here's the CBC today. Here's their story. State of Canadian Armed Forces combat readiness growing worse, government report warns. Department of National Defense report also says almost half of military's equipment is unserviceable. Oh, you don't say. Let me read a few paragraphs. Only 58% of the Canadian Armed Forces would be able to respond if called upon in a crisis by NATO allies right now. And almost half the military's equipment is considered unavailable and unserviceable, says a recent internal Department of National Defense presentation obtained by CBC News. The presentation, which touches on everything from readiness and equipment to recruiting and ammunition supplies, is dated December 31st, 2023. It's the latest comprehensive snapshot of the state of the military. The overview paints an alarming picture of the force's decline in readiness, one that's even worse than the figures presented in last year's federal budget documents. Quote, in an increasingly dangerous world where demand for the CAF is increasing, our readiness is decreasing, said the document. The issue of military readiness has preoccupied the House of Commons Defense Committee. The committee held a series of closed-door meetings last year where MPs could discuss sensitive information with top military commanders. Now, I'm not sure if you can see these pie charts the CBC showed, but 55% of our Air Force is not working. No wonder we don't hold that NATO exercise in Cold Lake, Alberta anymore. We used to hold it every year. It was called Maple Flag. That sounds a great name for it. It's sort of like the Top Gun for NATO in Alberta. All the NATO air forces would come together to practice with each other, practice working together in Alberta. It's pretty cool. Then Trudeau said, I am not kidding, they said they're shutting it down to make it better. Here's a press release from about 5 years ago. The Royal Canadian Air Force has decided to not conduct Exercise Maple Flag in 2019. The RCAF will use the opportunity to refocus its resources, to update the exercise's mandate, and to modernize the infrastructure used during the exercise. The RCAF will thereby ensure that Maple Flag remains focused and relevant to fighter operations in a dynamic and fluid battle space, now and into the future. In past years, Exercise Maple Flag took place at 4th Wing, Cold Lake, Alberta, in the June time period. I think that was the last of it. I don't think they've ever come back.